Are you egoing? Lego my egoing. What is the ego? Do you do the ego, or does the ego do something to you? I'm doing a series, 3 parts. This is part 1 in the What in the Woo series. I'm traveling for the next few weeks. First up, I'm going to Egypt. Maybe someday you will come with me, because I think I'm going to keep going. But right now, when this recording drops, I will be en route to kissing the Sphinx. I will send you some photos from the temples. So I'm going to roll out this 3-part series, What in the Woo. We're going to cover the ego. We're going to do that right now. The inner child. And we shall conclude with some fun with karma. Big twist on it. So are you egoing, or are you loving? I want to kick this off with a diamond liberating reframe of the ego. You ready? This might feel amazing. I hope it feels amazing. Here it is. The gift of the ego is to show us who we truly are. It's like got a bow on it. Struggle with it most of our lives, but it all leads to our divine nature. It's a gift. It has divine utility. The ego is not your evil twin. Not really. I mean, maybe it is like your evil twin, but metaphorically, it's not a curse. The ego is your shadow, and your shadow is your power portal. Isn't that the best news ever? I feel so much relief. This took me a long time to figure out. I'm here to flatten your learning curve, because for the longest time, I thought I needed to punish all of my ego-centric'isms. My arrogance needed to be told a thing or two. I thought, meet my arrogance with even bigger arrogance. My neediness needed to be squashed. I felt really ashamed of my deepest needs. My fear of the future. What a loser. Manipulating to get my needs met, which really, not in my defense, but with realism for humanity. Most of us go through life manipulating in one way or another to get our legit needs met, I eventually realized I was in this constant state of striving to burn my karma, to behave, to rectify my karma. Or there were occasions when I thought, I'm just going to ignore my dark side and plow forward, willful as fuck, with a great smile. Paid a lot for this dental work. But no, I learned that I've needed to assimilate, to actively, intentionally embrace my ego, to be gentle with my shadows. And that is some scary work. I had to change my relationship to my shame of my shadowy parts, to my fear of my shadow self, to my fear of the collective shadow. Oh my God, it's going to take me out. But first, before I could do that, and I've made some progress with that, I had to understand what the ego actually was, because the personal growth scene in the 90s really did me dirty in terms of ego misinformation. I got curious about a lot of ego-centered teachers. Too curious about that, and not enough Carl Jung and loving kindness in my ego approach protocols. I have some useful synonyms for the term ego. Help flesh this out. The shadow, the unhealed self, the wounded self. I think more specifically, I would say the perceived wounded self. So many of our wounds are just how we look at things, The small self, lower self, the abandoned self, abandoned by us, the unconsciousness, the subconscious, the inner child, which I'm going to talk a lot about next week, and egoing. I love egoing. I'm borrowing that term. I'll tell you who I got it from. Short version, the ego is the unhealed part of us. Isn't that sweet and approachable? Does that feel true? More succinctly, the ego is the way that our unhealed self acts. It's really just like unhealed behavior acting out. So I know you know this, but the ego is not this energy, this entity outside of ourselves. It doesn't come from another dimension. It's not a curse. It's our creation. It's part of us. It's back to this notion of it being the way our unhealed self acts. It's a way of exaggerating a sense of separate self. The ego thinks it's separate. This is a function of the mind. The mind's job is to say, this is hot, this is cold, this is right, this is wrong, this is inferior, this is superior, for better, for worse. That's what the mind does. Keeps us safe, brings us back to home. What's the gift of the ego? To show us who we really are. That's the gift of the mind. We use our free will, we engage the mind, we get to truth. And truth is beyond the mind. Anyway, the ego is an exaggeration that we are separate from each other. It has this way of identifying that it isn't soul, it isn't from source. It's separate from all other forms of life. It's superior to animals or whoever voted in a particular way. It's not fully part of God's source. It could not be possibly that powerful. So it's a way of seeing ourselves as alone. And when you perceive yourself to be alone, you might start to think that you're in a hostile universe, unfriendly place. And the ego acts like it wants to keep it that way, but it doesn't, not really. The ego is looking for love. We tend to think, or at least how I was raised, because, I was too big for my britches, that the ego is always about grandiosity, like bravado, flash, arrogance, But ego behavior also shows up just as much as insecurity, as being overly meek, overly self-deprecating. That part of us that believes we're separate from everything else is going to work all sides. It's going to tell you all kinds of stories to stay in its familiar place, to keep you out of high vibration states and experiences. It is craving, but not that interested in acceptance or communion. But that's what it really wants. We might think that our ego is the villain, that it's out to get us, that it's not really us, that it's apart from our divinity, from our sacred nature. But the ego isn't actually separate from us. It just likes to keep up that appearance. So let's get really meta with this. The shadow comes from the same source as the light. But the shadow isn't real. It's just a shadow. It's only a projection. But it comes from the light. The darkness has a divine origin. All shadows are cast by light, which is to say, stay with me here, the ego is a figment of your imagination. You're making it up, but you're the one that's doing the imagining. You're the consciousness. You're the spiritual adult. You're the grown-up. You're the higher self. You're the lower self, becoming your higher self. You're the light source that's casting the shadows. This is also really good news. You're in charge. So while the ego is this false sense of being alone, it actually really belongs to us. It has a place. And rather than trying to tame it or leave it behind on our way to being, more enlightened, we need to accept it for what it is and let it finally just come to peace. So let's get to one of my favorite terms, egoing. The ego is a behavioral pattern, right? It's a way of thinking. And its way of thinking is either on the defense or it's on the offense. But it's never coming from the heart, because the heart is inclusive. Everything's okay in that heart space. There's room for all of it. There's no division in the heart space. It's inclusive. It's the portal to the higher self. It's got room for your stuff and my stuff. So it's not so much that we have an ego. It's that we ego our way through life. So this is where the term egoing comes from. One of my favorite teachers, you've probably heard me speak of him before, Adyashanti, who was born Stephen Gray. He was a cyclist, a Zen meditator, had some awakening experiences. And I find him to be like one of the most accessible, honest, clear, loving teachers. Anyway, he refers to this as egoing. So my next step from that is to think that, when we could be loving, we're egoing. And the term egoing helps me approach the ego as a behavioral pattern instead of this enemy outside of myself. And I think that when we see the ego as just a way of operating instead of this external character, I feel like it helps us to be more understanding and compassionate with that construction, that thing we've made up, the ego, and with ourselves, with the rest of ourselves. So some ego behaviors. When we're being a bit brazen or too timid, what if instead of saying, oh, that's my ego and I need to get it in check, and we get into like taming it and scolding it, what if instead we just say, oops, I was egoing and now I can get back to loving? Boldness, overbold, pushy, timid, meek, letting our insecurities get the best of us. Those are all ego behaviors. And you can just get right back to loving. You're just doing it. You're not being it, This means that the ego is an amazing coach, like a fantastic trainer in intimacy, emotional intimacy. Because when we're going about doing our egoing in relationship, when we're comparing and we're all fearful and wigging out and we're rejecting parts of ourselves and parts of others, that is exactly when we get to meet our shadow. Shadow comes up and says, hi, I am what you have been repressing. And all of this love and this longing and this attention is bringing me out of the shadows. And this is the opportunity to heal. This is the opportunity to be compassionate, to be forgiving, to be radiant, So there's a quick move you can make in terms of egoing. And it's best to do this repeatedly, quick and over again. Speak kindly, just like a mother would, to the parts of yourself that you've been avoiding, to the parts of yourself that you've been hating on or trying to hide. Just speak kindly within and maybe out loud, especially to the stuff that's been wreaking the havoc in your life. You might say, oh, sweet jealousy, I see you. You can relax in my heart. I accept you. Even though you have torn my life apart. You have made me into a nutcase in relationships. I have space for you. I'm not asking you to not be jealous. And when you have these conversations with these havoc-wreaking, embarrassing parts of yourself, these so-called shameful fragments, you breathe into your heart when you're talking with your shadow parts. This is it's critical. It's very metaphysical. Breathing into your heart chakra while you intentionally converse with your neuroses. That part of you that feels like it can never crack into that beautiful people circle. There's all that seeking and that fawning that you're doing for an entry point in with the cool kids. You gotta love that part of your needy nutbag self. You talk to her when you're in the bathtub. You say, darling girl, I know you always feel uncool and you feel unabandoned. That's okay. You just feel your feelings and you just sit in my heart and rest. I made you. I trained you. I have space for you. I'm a grown up. sit in my heart and rest. I have so much love for you. You don't even need to change. You don't need to be less needy. Just park it here. Don't hang out anywhere else. Stay with me where it's safe. This is shadow work. And shadow work is the ultimate and original cringe. It's the most profound cringe. It's the cringiest of cringy. Let's do another ego racket. That bullshit or actor part that some of us have in us. That way that we kind of round up the truth, so-called truth. You know, that part of you that may be tainting your entire life. You have to love it. Just like a little kid needs to be loved. Little gangster, little bullshitter kid. Yeah? Little kid who's just looking for love. You don't even need to forgive that part of yourself. Not even necessary. Don't even engage in that conversation. I forgive you. No. Your love is unconditional. There's not even a need for forgiveness. You just make space for that actor in you to relax in your mind. You talk kindly to it. You know why? Because it needs a break. It's looking for love. You have got the love. This is the work. It's the work of a lifetime, by the way. You know, practitioners can sit on a meditation cushion for years, perpetual retreat, just trying to do this work, to dissolve their self-loathing, their internal and external cruelties. This is it. I think that ultimately, well, I don't think there is an ultimate. I don't think we arrive anywhere. I think we're here now and we'll be somewhere else tomorrow. It's endless. Does that feel like good news or bad news? I don't know. It depends on the day, doesn't it? I think we will all get to this more relaxed place if we do the work, the heart-centering work, where we can just laugh with our ego instead of at our ego, you know. We just will be able to say, I'm on my way to enlightenment and I'm bringing my ego with me. That's it. There's no resentment. There's just loving awareness. There's light and there's shadow. No fragment left behind. So shall we review? Because I love me a good bullet point list. The ego, or the shadow self, is the unhealed part of us. Specifically, it's the way our unhealed self acts out. So that acting, perpetuated, is a behavioral pattern. The ego is a way of thinking. And that way of thinking exaggerates a sense of being separate. The ego acts like it doesn't want to be loved and to be healed. Like it doesn't need the sweetness and the gentleness and the spiritual direction, but it really does want it, because all fragments in the universe want to return home. This is all a journey to go back to source, to go back to the heart. The gift of the shadow is to show us that we are the light source. The gift of the ego is to show us who we truly are. Genuine, authentic love. Ego-centered to heart-centered. I will keep being here for you again and again, in my ego, out of my ego. Mostly, hopefully, in my heart, always with love. Danielle. Thank you so much for listening, for feeling, for spreading the word. With love.